People are ramping up their public cloud efforts, but what we've seen from a business standpoint, costs are becoming rather astronomical. And from an IT perspective and from a security standpoint, there's really not a lot of policies and procedures. That seems like a very common scenario. Where would you start the conversation on what to maybe optimize their cloud strategy in the future?
I'm going to say, remember that you're not alone. Remember that it's okay to get to this point and go, I need some help. Where should my workloads actually be? Should they actually be in Azure? Should they be in AWS? Where should they go? There's a lot of advantages for one versus the other.
What I've also been seeing is when companies reach this point, they tend to go to the marketplace and try to find an expert, an Azure expert, an AWS expert. That seems like the common next step. What are my other options besides staffing and turning?
I don't do my own taxes. If I'm just doing my own individual taxes and going through the forms and going through this, I'm only looking through this one little lens about me. But a tax professional who's trained, who sees all the new updates that go on every year, who works with multiple clients and organizations, they've got this wider vision of how to translate and maybe use one situation from one client and translate it to help benefit you. Meaning, I'm not going to go out and I'm trying to relate this to if I'm on Azure and AWS and GCP, maybe I'm in this big multi-cloud environment and I've got some on-prem. Am I just going to go to one resource who has a specific capability in one area, or an organization that does similar types of assessment and consulting and work across multiple different customers, multiple different scenarios, multiple different situations?
Put it simply, what consists of this cloud assessment and what some of the outcomes might be?
So in a cloud assessment, a consulting company is going to go through and look at things like what your workloads consist of, what hardware they run on, where are they running, what performance, what are your expectations for the performance of these applications, the uptime and availability, the confidentiality requirements around your data. We're also going to probe a little bit into what does the future state of the business look like to help bring out some alignment between where is the business going, maybe how they're adapting to recent changes or long-term changes to help reach their customers better, to provide more accessibility for their systems closer to where the client is actually consuming data.
In the example of one cloud environment, everyone's on the same, Office 365 environment, and maybe you want to spin off one of those entities. The last thing you want is having IT be the last ones to know, right? By the way, I need this done in 5 weeks, and they already have enough on their plate. So that's a common scenario too. So what would you say to that?
How do we align IT with business and where the business is going so they can respond and provide those services? Maybe I've got 1,000 mailboxes in my holding company, all under one tenant, and even just 150 of them need to be split off. How do I do this with zero impact to both organizations? How do I ensure that the organization moving away is only taking the data that they're supposed to, keeping all the same kind of the big three security tenets around confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the data, the important things around that business that's being split off? How do we ensure that the data, the systems, the applications are spun off in a timely manner? Let's not have IT have 5 weeks to accomplish something that realistically might actually take more like a couple months or 6 months, depending on things.
As an executive, maybe the deal's not done yet. Maybe we haven't, finalized. Mm-hmm. Is there something that IT can do to kind of proactively prepare for that?
Many of these, think of it like a template. If this is a regular business process that you're acquiring companies and maybe you're splitting off companies, it can be something that we have IT work on, or even use a third party to see, here's my environment, we're looking at doing this. A little bit of investment to maybe create some templates. It's just possible to do it without a lot of strife. So great use for the public cloud, accessibility, uptime, and performance. You can use the public cloud to extend your reach. So if you're today out of just one data center in one location, clients and your customers are trying to access that from all over the US, all over North America, or even all over the globe, The public cloud allows you to move those workloads, move that data closer, or even present the same application, the local data to users so they don't notice a difference, whether they're located in Australia or Asia or the US. To them, it's all seamless.
So I understand the benefits of access it from anywhere in the world. I get that. But how do I ensure my application form properly at a user level, regardless of where they are? What are my risks around that type of situation?
Start at the bottom of the OSI layer, just the physical connections into wherever my data center is hosting. Do I have SLAs on those? Do I have some guarantees on that type of service? As I keep moving up that stack, all the way up to layer 7 in the application, everybody gauges performance based on how fast the application pops. The public cloud has multiple options for each one of those layers. The public cloud gives you a range of tools, a range of capabilities to meet the needs of your application. So you have the data, the visibility to be able to say, yes, I am meeting that. Yes, I can see that screen pops on this application are taking a second in the public cloud versus 5 seconds here. It's a great thing to help give you the next set of tools for more of a real 21st century infrastructure.
So you mentioned costs. I want to go back to that for a second. As a business owner, I want to make sure that what we're paying for is what we're actually using. How can I even confirm that?
Let me start out with saying there are cost optimization tools in the public clouds. So Azure, AWS, even GCP has some cost optimization tools. I think those are good places to start. But my question is, do they really give you an agnostic vision of real recommendations, real ways to optimize your cost? A third party, someone who doesn't have skin in the game on hosting in one public cloud versus the other, they can really say, here's what you're spending, here's our recommendations on this cloud platform. It doesn't matter where you're hosting. My only thing that I'm trying to accomplish for you is make sure that however you're consuming these resources, however you're using them, it's constructed and you're paying for exactly what you need when you need it.
It's kind of surprising how many people would use the incumbent cloud provider to also optimize their spend. Seems like a little conflicting from the provider standpoint.
It's a good value add. I can appreciate that they're doing the big cloud providers have purchased up smaller companies that used to be independent and used to doing things themselves and kind of put them into the mix as like a value add. And it's a great place to start. I would want to look across all the public clouds in one tool set. Maybe these services over here would be a better spot.
So I bring in a third party, we have some, and we make the necessary modifications and we kind of baseline our public cloud spend. What would you recommend? Is this something I just let run and continuously optimize my spend, or is there some?
So I'll equate it to a penetration test. It's a snapshot point in time. If you only do it once, if you only create a baseline and say, here's what I'm paying as of this date and this year. In our infrastructure, changes happen. We get a new firewall, we make exceptions, we make new rules. Maybe the administrator doesn't close the door behind them in a timely manner and leaves that door open. Same thing with cost. Same thing with cost. You want that tool to run continuously, multiple times a day, and to give you alerts when it sees something, say on the weekend when somebody turned up a group of virtual machines to process a job and it went haywire. Now we've got this outlandish bill. Keep it running. Well worth the investment. Just make some policies and honestly hold people accountable. If you're going to give them the ability to turn up virtual machines and you can't automate that, so you can automate, turning them off when they're not in use anymore or turning them on when they need to be, hold them accountable, show them what the policy is, help them understand what's at risk here, not just a cost, but maybe it's an availability and the security risk too.
Is there any reason or benefit to just hiring a single human, or maybe a couple of them, that have GCP or AWS certifications, that have maybe seen one, maybe two other company environments from their past employer, compared to a consulting firm that has seen it from hundreds of companies, 100 times more of the perspective? Why would someone do that?
I think that's the big challenge there, retention of those resources, meaning essentially we're an Azure shop, okay? If we went out and hired somebody specific to watch our Azure environment and our Office 365, and it's gonna leave and you're gonna have to restart all over again. And this isn't something new. This has been happening for decades. it puts your organization at risk. It's a big risk to put all of that knowledge, a good amount of responsibility, all on one person's staff. Why not spread that around and frankly, let an organization manage the employees, manage the training. If your business is not training people to stay up on technology, why would you start a new department? That's what these managed services companies are built on.
If you feel like your public cloud environment is unregulated and seems to become the Wild West, the good news is you're not alone. We're here to help.